What's up guys, Infinity here and welcome back to another YouTube video. In today's video I'm going to be making a Bipole 4 Liberation of Xuir tier list because my channel is dead because I have not been uploading anything. And if you're wondering what happened to my plans for weekly uploads, this happened. I made the mistake of attempting to do a Store Ocean blind review in 1 week, which let's just say I didn't even make it past the second dungeon in a week. And I did get distracted due to things other than YouTube, and by the time I came back to playing the game, I forgot the controls to the game, and as stupid as it might sound, I got distracted and didn't get around to actually finishing the game, which means the video also was not finished. So I decided that it might be more efficient to create these shorter, like tier list style videos, like my old JoJo tier list video, instead of reviewing a 80-hour long RPG in a week that I have never played and must beat within a week, which is more unreasonable than I thought it would be when I planned it. And let's just say I have very poor planning skills, so let's just do a tier list for Bipole 4 Liberation of Xuir instead. And this is a game that I have a lot of experience and knowledge of since I made the game, so I think I'll be able to provide a pretty accurate tier list ranking of the game. And the tier lists for this are going to be gaming, good, decent, meh, and bad. So the game doesn't really have many units that are just straight up like really bad, but those are going to be the units that are going to be in bad. The units that are just like meh, don't use them, but they won't like, they are usable, will be in meh. Decent would be like, okay, they're not like good, but they can still help you. Good would be like, okay, you want to use these units, and gaming will be, if you're not using this unit, you are actively hurting your playthrough, and you're probably doing a challenge run. So without further ado, let's get into this. So the first unit that you get in the game is Proton. He is the protagonist of the game. As you can see here, I ordered the characters in order of recruitment. I hope this is accurate because I did it out of memory. But Proton, I'd say that he is gaming. Proton has decent bases. He's higher than any of the theme calibers, so he'll be like a tank in the theme calibers route. And he has good growth as well. And he has a lot of different things he can do. He can tank, he can attack, and he also gets Mage Blade, I believe, which allows him to deal magic damage. And overall, he's just a really good unit, and you have to keep him alive anyways, so might as well use him. And I will have the different variations of Proton separately tiered, like the Genocide Proton, the Azure route Proton, the Genocide route Proton, and Xuir Man Proton. I do realize that most of these are technically not different characters, but there's enough variance in stats and different things that they can do that I will rank them separately. So next we have Crest. Crest is extremely vital to the beginning of the game. He is the only magic user you will get unless you kill him off and get theme calibers, but you basically have to use him for magic damage until like Act 2, since that's when you'll start getting like more, like that's the point where Helia will probably be strong enough to actually use offensive magic, and we don't talk about this guy, so imagine using Lesotel. But he's basically going to be your main magic guy for a while, and he does do healing. He's the only healer you have for the first few chapters, which makes him extremely useful. And honestly, he would, I think I'm gonna put him in good. Actually no, gaming, because even though he is one of the most important characters in your team at the beginning of the game, after Act 2 he does start to fall off since he only has basic magic attacks. He doesn't have any overpowered congeal or anything, but since he is so important to the beginning of the game, I'm gonna have to put him in gaming. Next we have Xuir. He is the infinityJKA unit of this game, and Xuir, I'm gonna have to put him in decent. So at the beginning of the game he is good, but I don't really feel that he's necessary to beat the game. Obviously he helps, but if he dies in chapter 3 or something, it's not gonna ruin your game unless you're relying on him. And his bases all good, but his growths are some of the worst in the game, if not the worst. And by Act 3, he's basically gonna be useless in combat, and his healing stuff's not gonna even be that good, since his attack is pretty low, unless you keep leveling him up a lot. But there are much better units that you could be using. But since he does have some usability in Act 1 with his really good bases, I will put him in decent. He does have some use. Next you have your boy Ramra. He is the funny unit that everyone likes to be haha funny about, but as an actual unit, he takes a lot of effort to use. He has really good defense, but 2 move is really bad, or 2 speed is what it's called in this game. But since he can only move 2 tiles, that does extremely hurt him, but you'd also give him at the beginning of the game. And since he can become good once he hits level 10 and gets bows and ranged weapons and such, I will put him in decent. If you recruited him in Act 2 or something, he would definitely be meh or bad, but since you do have so much time to level him up, and he does have usability and the boss fight against the green mercenary dude, I forgot his name, in chapter 4, he is useful in that chapter. And if you do level him up to level 10, he actually becomes really good and has a pretty decent attack stat once you level him up. So I will put him in decent, but he does take effort to use, but has potential to become very good, and he has the time to actually utilize that potential, unlike some other units I'll be talking about. Next we have the theme calipers, and I'm just gonna, there we go. These are probably the lowest base stat units in the game. They are extremely bad on purpose, since the theme calipers route is the horde mode of the game. You do kind of have to use them since you killed off your entire starting team to recruit them, but they are really bad and they will be replaced instantly by other units the second you recruit more characters. Next we have Lassotel Lacortel. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he is not very good. The only reason you'll use him is if you somehow killed Quest, but even then, he's really bad, trash defensive stats, and his attacking is mediocre too. I don't think his accuracy is that good. He can become decent, but I don't really feel there's any point in the game that he'll really become good or great. He's just kind of there. But if you killed Quest, you kind of need someone else for magic damage, but at the same time, imagine killing Quest in chapter 3 without doing it on purpose. So yeah, not very good. Probably one of the worst magic users in the game. Next we have Damagen. Damagen is a weird unit. He has some of the best attack stats in the game, but everything else about him is pretty trash, including a pretty low accuracy. He does have some usage, but he requires an insane amount of effort to actually pull off, and I'm gonna have to put him in meh. He does sword damage and stuff if you want another physical unit and you don't want to use Proton for some reason. Sure, he can help with damage, but he's not very good, but he is usable, so I'm not putting him in bad. Next we have Helia. Helia would be gaming tier if it weren't for one thing, and that is the fact that she dies in the Aerith route, which is really annoying. The Aerith route is probably the best route to play the game in terms of difficulty, And since she isn't usable in what I consider the best or the most fun route of the game, that really like hurts her. But if you're playing like the fail route or something, she is a really good healer. I do think Relay is still better, but she is really good. She does have attack damage when she levels up to like level 19 or 20, I don't remember. But very good healer, and she is the second unit that you get with healing stats, unless you count the theme calipers, but they're stupid, so we don't count them. So overall, very good unit, very good healer, but since she does have a scripted death in the game, I have to put her below Gaming Deal. Next we have Rob. Rob is, he's an interesting unit. He has actually really bad bases, but he comes with Bow Plus, and I'm pretty sure he's the only playable character to be able to use Bow Plus. And Bow Plus is really, really useful at the point that you unlock him in the game, since like most enemy units at max have 2 range until like Act 2, and you do get him like halfway through Act 1. So that's a big plus, but also a big minus against him is the fact that you have to use the theme calipers to recruit him, which does hurt his position. However, he does become really good later in the game once you unlock Snipe, and is probably one of the better snipers in the game once you start leveling him up, but it does take some effort. And since you do have to sacrifice Cian and Crest to even recruit him, and you have to keep theme calipers the third alive, it does detriment him. I want to put him in decent, but I'm gonna have to put him in meh because of the cost of actually recruiting him. Next, we have your boy Bladen. He has 5 movement, and I think that's all that needs to be said to put him in at least decent. His bases are pretty bad, but he does have Medkit, and he is recruited in Act 1, which means he has plenty of time to give himself EXP from using that. And I think he also gets Armor Break, which is effective against armored units, which is a really good move. And overall, he's really good for like finishing off like units with chip damage, and he does have really high accuracy. And combined with Medkit and stuff, I'm gonna put him in decent. Since he does deal really low attack damage, he won't really be like killing bosses or anything, so that would make him good if he had high attack and stuff, but he does have really good movement, and everything else about him is pretty good, apart from his defensive stuff. He isn't the best defensively. He's not as bad as like Lasodel, but he has a mediocre defense and really low attack, but he does make up for it with his other stuff, so I will put him in decent. If he was recruited like later on in the game with these stats, he would definitely be like a meh tier even with his speed because of his really low attack, but he has a lot of time to grow the attack and comes with Medkit at base, so that's why I'm putting him in decent. Next we have your boy Rodas. So as tempted as I am to put him in gaming tier just for the funny meme, he isn't that good, and I'm putting him in decent. So he has really bad, well not really bad, but pretty low bases, and he's gonna take effort to level up on his own. However, he does recruit weapons in Act 2 in the fail and throw route, and he also gets like 5 bonus conversations, and like 3 of them are in a row. So that's a bunch of free level ups for him, but again his stats aren't the best, and he doesn't really excel at anything, so I'm putting him in decent tier because he is a decent unit, but he won't be doing anything amazing. And if it weren't for his recruitment and his free level ups, he would be a much worse unit, but he does get a bunch of free levels from his bonus conversations with weapons, and overall he is just a decent unit. Not anything special, but decent. Next we have Xuir. I mean, he has the best growths in the game, I think, and also some of the best bases in the game, and the whole purpose of his thing is that you have to kill him off in order to get the genocide ending, which is the whole challenge. But like, if you're just trying to beat the game, he's completely overpowered and there's not really much to even compare his power to. Next we have Genocide, or not Genocide, but Azuro Route Proton. So he is actually going, no, I'm not gonna put him above, actually I'm not ordering them, so I'm just gonna put him here. He's different from Proton as in he gets like 23 level ups after defeating Blados, which is really good. And apart from that, he does get way more EXP because of he is the only unit apart from Azuriel in the route, and he is a really strong unit, and his power doesn't really compare to any other unit apart from Azuriel, because he is like, you know, a genocide route character, and those are extremely overpowered because of the stuff that you need to do in the story. Next we have playable Blados. So Blados has really good bases, but in the long term, he's not exactly the best. I don't think he gets any moves with a range more than 2, which really hurts him. And he's also only playable in New Game Plus, but he does provide extra EXP with his bonus chapters, and you get to fight Walmos Alexander, which gives you some free EXP to a unit. So I will put him in good because of the things that he provides, but he's definitely not as good as Quest. And also you recruit him like 10 chapters later than Quest, so yeah. Next we have Fail, Aerith, and Flood, 3 units that you have to pick from in chapter 10 or 11, I don't remember. It's the last chapter of Act 1. But first of all, let's get the obvious out the way. Vroor, haha, funny meme character. He literally has 69 in his name. So, I mean, there's literally no redeeming qualities about him. He is literally designed to be the worst unit in the game. Just really bad. Do not use him, he will actively harm your playthrough. Next we have Fail. So Fail is really good. He is Biotype, which means he gets effective damage against all the water units in Act 2 using his Vine Bow, which is a unique weapon to him. And as well as that, he also gets Snipe, which is extremely useful. But playing on the Fail route, the game is, I find it really tedious and boring, since a lot of it's like dumbed down to just stay back and snipe for enemy, which is why I consider the Fail route to be easier, but I prefer the Aerith route since it's not just haha shoot enemy with snipe and win. But again, just basing him off of how effective he is at the game, he is a really good unit and he's going into gaming tier. If you're doing the Fail route, there's literally no reason not to use him. Next we have Aerith. Aerith is from the Aerith route, and I'm not gonna put the lack of Fail's recruitment against her recruitment, since she is an extremely overpowered unit, probably one of the best sword units in the game, and also she gets Fireball, and then she gets a 5 range fire move later, which is extremely good. Physical plus magic ranged damage, that's not something that most characters have, and also she does get to recruit B. Where is he? B, who is also a pretty decent unit, and she completely destroys the endgame if you level her up properly. And honestly, I'd say that she's a better unit than Fail. More difficult to use since you can't just Unga Bunga, use Snipe and win. But if you manage like healing and stuff correctly and level her up properly in Act 2, she is one of the best units in the game, gaming tier. Next we have your boy Generic Mercenary Whistles. So it's really difficult to recruit him since you have to kill off a bunch of your units to even meet him. And as a unit, he's pretty bad. He's really bad. I mean, you can level him up and he'll probably be like better than like Damagen, but that's not really saying much. His only redeeming quality is that he gets to recruit Tabmok at the beginning of Act 4, which is he's a really good unit, but is it worth feeding him the EXP to keep him alive? No, not really, but if you really want to use him and like your other units are dead, he is kind of usable. So meh tier, just a really meh unit without much redeeming qualities. Next you have your funny boy Weapons, and this is his Act 2 recruitment. His Act 4 recruitment is down there. So Act 2 Weapons has some pretty specific things that you need to recruit him. You need to have Rodars in your party, and you cannot have Aerith or Rob in your party. So if you meet all of those conditions, you get to meet him, and he is a sniper, and that makes him gaming tier. He snipes. That's basically it. It's Unga Bunga fail route. Just snipe and win. And that is why the route is easy for beginners. Next we have Relay. Relay is probably the best healer in the game, and he gets Congeal around Act 4 if you're leveling up the characters properly, and Congeal completely destroys the Act 4 enemies. Like, you can easily defeat like the final boss or most final bosses using Congeal thanks to its insane range and really good damage. Just have him like being healed by another person, and he could just snipe them with 10 range ice moves. So yeah, also he's a healer, not just in attacking, but he is the best healer in the game in my opinion, because he has really good attack stats and stuff, which allows him to heal decent amounts of HP, and he does get infinite range healing relatively quickly, which really helps him out. So gaming tier, probably the best healer in the game. I would even say he's better than Helia, even if you have both of them in the fail route. Next we have Eob. He isn't the best healer, but at the same time he is a healer, and healing is really important, especially in the late game. I would put him in meh tier, but you do get him early enough that you can level him up pretty quickly. But he has one really big downside that I just remembered. He is a replacement unit similar to Vessels. I think you need to have 8 or less units alive to even recruit him. And at that point, you probably do need a healer if all of your units are dying. But at the same time, he does have a pretty steep cost to his recruitment. So I'm gonna have to put him at meh. If he didn't have a recruitment cost, I would put him in decent. Next we have Lias, meh tier. So she has probably some of the best growths in the game. Not as good as Azul, obviously, but like out of like the non-genocide characters, probably the best growths in the game. But she has really bad attack and really bad accuracy. So like even if you're trying to like level her up slowly, like she's gonna die if she like misses an attack and gets countered. So it's extremely difficult to level her up, and honestly, kind of on bad tier, honestly, since she isn't really usable. She does get heal and medkit, but I don't feel like that's enough to save her if you're playing the game at a reasonable pace. If you're like doing like 100 turns per chapter, maybe, but at the same time, she's not that good, and honestly, it's worth sacrificing her to meet the requirements of like any replacement units afterwards, because she doesn't really contribute anything, and if anything, she's just something keeping you away from meeting recruitment requirements for like characters like Recalibur. So bad deal. Now we have I forgot her name, the thief person. Fight. So she is a replacement unit, but she's really good. Like if you don't have like that many units and you're really close to meeting the minimum amount of units to recruit, or I'd say that it's usually worth sacrificing a unit or two just to recruit her, because she has 5 move and she's basically Bladen, but better in every way apart from recruitment cost and join time, since she joins at the end of Act 2, but at the same time 5 move with actually good attack, unlike Bladen. She would be good tier, but decent tier because of her cost. So yeah, very good unit. I do recommend recruiting her if you have a low amount of members in your party, but if you have like 15 members, it's not really like worth sacrificing, like, oh, I'm gonna sacrifice fail and blah 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 to recruit her. Don't do that. But if you're like doing an Iron Man and you're low on units and you're really close to meeting the requirement, I'd say that it's usually worth sacrificing a unit or two to recruit her. But the recruitment cost is really steep, which is why she's in decent tier. Next, we have Egg. Egg has actually Refgif. Okay. Egg and Refgif join on the first chapter of Act 3, and you get to choose whether to recruit them or not, and if you don't recruit them, you get to fight them for free EXP. I think it's like 1 or 2 levels for each of them. I think it's like 200 EXP, and as long as you're below the tournament, that's like 2 free level ups per kill. So that's like 4 free levels if you decide to kill them, which is a trade-off that most recruitments in the game don't have. But I mean, they're not that good. I would say that Egg has some usability as a sniper, or as like a target for sniper, since he has really low defense but has absurdly high HP, so he is decent for drawing out snipers, but as in combat he's basically useless. But since he does have some important utility, I will put him in decent. Meanwhile, Refgif, he's just bad. Low HP, mediocre damage. He does have a high movement, but that doesn't make up for his really bad stats. So he's going into Meteor. Next we have, actually Meteor. Because as a unit, he's complete trash. He's like slightly better than Zra, but if you... Actually, no. I'm putting him in bad tier. Because if you keep him alive, you don't have to fight Dale later in Act 3. But honestly, I think it's better to fight Dale, since if you fight him, you get to recruit these guys, compared to recruiting Neville the OS, who isn't as good as like getting all 4 of them, in my opinion. So bad tier. Keeping him alive actively prevents you from recruiting them, and also to recruit him, you have to kill Aerith or not have her in a party. So not worth it at all. Bad deal. Also, he's, as a unit, he's just really bad. He's like basically Zra, but slightly better. Next we have B. B requires decently steep cost, since you need to have Aerith and Helia both alive, and Helia will die in the scripted event, but he is pretty good, and if you're using Aerith, that's already a cost that you'll probably consider. So honestly, I'll have to put him in good tier. He does really good damage. He has ranged attacks with his missiles, and his missiles are really good. They do take a bit of leveling to get, but they're really good. Decent and a decent attack. And overall, he's just a very good unit. Next we have Xuir something. I don't remember the name of the 3 Xuirs. I think this one's Xuir 5th, and Xuir End. I don't remember. But anyways, we have the red Xuir. So if you recruit him, you get to recruit the blue one, and if you recruit the blue one, you get to recruit the orange one, which is how the whole thing goes. And on his own, he'd be like a meh unit, but since recruiting him does allow you to get the other 2, I'm gonna put him in decent. And as a combat unit, he's really bad. He has like basically no HP or defense. He's like a glass cannon, but without that good of attack. Aerith probably has more attack than him at that point, so not really much point to actually using him, apart from recruiting the orange guy, who's really good. Next we have Xuir. I don't know how to say his name, it has too many O's in it. But basically this guy, you get him if you don't recruit the red Xuir, but you do lose him on the final boss of the Omega route in New Game Plus, but that's probably not something most people are going to be playing, so I'm not going to really consider it. I'd say he's a better unit than red Xuir, but he's not really too crazy. He has decent defense, but he's pretty slow. He has decent attack, but nothing like too crazy. He won't be like one-shotting enemies or anything. He will like kill them after a few rounds of combat, but not anything too crazy. But he is a decent unit, so I will put him in decent. He does have the cost of missing out on him, but since you do get him like at the beginning ports of Act 3 compared to the very end of Act 3 and the beginning of Act 4 with the orange guy, I'm gonna put him in decent, since I think that it kind of evens it out. I still do think that recruiting him is usually the better option though. Next we have the blue Xuir, if I think his name is. He's better than the red Xuir Venth. You know what? I'm looking up their names on the Lemnis Gate wiki. So the orange guy is called Xuir, the blue guy is called Xuir Fifth, and the blue guy is, the red guy is called Xuir Venth. Okay, so Xuir or Xuir Fifth, I'm just gonna call him Xuir Fifth since that's easier to say. He is better than Xuir Venth, but not by much. He does have magic damage, which is ranged, which helps him out, but still he's not really that good. He does help out a bit in chapter 19A against like the armored units, but at the same time, the only reason you'll recruit him is because he's a free recruit because of him, and you need to recruit him to get Xuir, who is really good. Next we have Deleague, I think his name is Deleague, I don't know how to say it, I'm just gonna say Deleague, but he's decent. He has high HP, but he has absurdly low accuracy because of the axe, but he does tank, he has medkit, and he has a really high attack when he does hit, so I will put him in decent. He's not bad, he's usable as like a tank, and he's pretty useful in the fight against Dale, because he can tank attacks and he does have medkit, I think. So Exa, on the other hand, yeah, not good. He can like deal damage, but he like dies instantly, and he has like the highest accuracy out of the 3 mercenary axe guys, but he's easily the worst, and he doesn't really have any redeeming qualities other than being like a sacrifice, but he doesn't like actively hurt you, but at the same time he's kind of useless. He is involved in one bonus conversation, but it's not worth it since it's with like someone really bad. I don't remember who, but honestly I'll put him in bad tier since there's not really any use for him other than sacrificing him. Similar to like Lias, there's not really much point in using him, since even if you try to level him up, he's gonna suffer, and it's not really worth the effort, and you're probably better off killing him to recruit like Recalibur or something. Next we have Uraincrim. So unlike the other two, Uraincrim is pretty good. So he has medkit, he has decent damage, and his accuracy isn't high as Exa, but I think it's higher than the League, and I think he has the best growth as well, and he unlocks healing spells if you keep leveling him up, and he also has a support with Proton and a support with Aerith, so not support but bonus conversation, because I've been playing too much Fire Emblem, but he does have a bonus conversation with Proton and Aerith, which does give him a bunch of free EXP as well as giving them EXP, and just as a unit he's easily the best out of the 3 mercenaries. Next we have Giamor. So Giamor is a replacement unit, and you'll probably recruit him after chapter 19A, seeing how the chapter basically kills off all of your units, because haha, difficult chapter. So with Giamor, he's decent, he's not really anything special, but he's similar to Xuir in how he uses Giam based attacks, which are pretty interesting. But as a unit, he's not really anything too special, but he is decent, but he does have a pretty steep cost of having to kill the units, but at the same time, your units will probably be pretty dead by that point, so I'll put him in decent. Next we have Box. So Box and Level of the OS are the 2 units that you get if you have if you don't fight Dale, which is if you have Elbon recruited, and then there's the Shadian attack squad or whatever that you get if you fight Dale. And honestly, I feel like the Shadian attack squad is a better option, seeing how you get 4 units of pretty diverse usage compared to a person who exclusively does healing and a decent fighter, but not really anything too special. So as a unit, he is pretty good. As a healer, he is pretty good, but he does have the recruitment cost. But honestly, I'm not going to really count that too much against him, and he does do a good job at healing, so I'll put him at decent. He does have like 5 speed as well too, so he can move really quickly. Meanwhile, Neville OS, he isn't anything too crazy. In my opinion, he's just like a worse B since he has like 2 movement but higher attack. So I'll put him in decent as well. Not anything too special, but decent. And then we have the Shadian Recruitment Squad, or whatever it's called, I don't remember. Shadian something squad, led by Dale. So we have Deneft. Deneft is pretty he's pretty mediocre. He's like Ramra, but you recruit him like 20 chapters later, but he has slightly better stats. Like, he's really good. Well, not really good. He's decent defensively. He could take like a decent amount of attacks, but he will get like 2-rounded by like magic and stuff, and he's probably not going to be outspeeding anyone. But he can be used as a decent distraction, and damage wise it's pretty low, but he can be used for damage on like Lias or Elbon or any of the lower tier characters. He's not going to deal like insane damage like some of these characters, but he can be used offensively, so I will put him in. So he has some usage in attack, he has a lot of usage in defense, and he's overall just pretty mediocre, but he is usable, and if you recruit him, you should probably use him. And also, he can be used for sacrifice and take multiple hits if you want to do that. Next, we have Thigiv. Thigiv is extremely mediocre. I'm gonna put her in meh because she dies pretty quickly, doesn't really have much attack, but if you're recruiting the others, you might as well recruit her as well because she comes with the rest of them. And if you want to sacrifice her for recalper, you could do that. But honestly, if you want a sword fighter just to deal physical damage for whatever reason, she can do that. She just won't excel at it. And honestly, I'd say Deneft is better since he can be used for defense as well. But he has 2 speed. But at the same time, the defense really helps out, especially in the later chapters when you want to tank a bunch of physical attacks. Meanwhile, she just doesn't really do anything. Just slightly below average in every stat, but is usable unlike the bad characters. Next we have Ganirith. Ganirith is probably the reason why anyone actually uses the Shadian Recruitment Squad. I'm gonna put him in you know what, I'm putting him in gaming because he's a sniper, and if you're a sniper, you're basically gaming tier, unless you need to do some crazy stuff to actually reach that, like Ramra, or have a really high cost like Rob. But anyways, Ganirith, he's really good. Not as good as Fail or Weapons, but you do have the benefit of being able to use him in the Aerith route, and as well as that, you do get Deneft along with him. And having an extra sniper is always extremely useful, especially in Act 4 when you have to kill all the timer things in the boss fight against the elves. So yeah. And then the last Shadian member is Sigam. Sigam's decent. She's a healer, really low HP and defensive stuff, but again, healing is always extremely useful, and she does have infinite range healing, and I'm gonna put her in decent. And one thing that I haven't discussed yet about the Shadians is that you can choose to sacrifice them, and in return, this guy, I forgot his name, will give Proton a really strong spell. So you could decide to do that. I usually don't do that since Ganirith and Deneft and Sigam are pretty useful. and I do use them in most of my playthroughs. But if you want to, you can sacrifice them in order to get the spell from him, but again, I don't really see that as worth a while in the majority of playthroughs, which is why I won't count it against them. Ayo, it's your boy, Young Poggles, and he's going into meh. As a unit, he's pretty mediocre. He's basically like Giamo or Xuir, but he just has way worse availability since he's recruited later than them. And he also requires Ver, and if you're keeping Ver alive, or even doing the Ver route in the first place, you're already like harming yourselves. So, Matthew, he is like a decent unit, but just the cost of actually getting him is insanely high, so meh. Next we have Omega. Omega is recruited by keeping Rob alive, and that's a more difficult, or that's a more specific requirement than you might think, since to recruit Rob in the first place, you need to recruit Theme Calipos III, and Theme Calipos III needs to be recruited by killing off all of your starting units, which is something that you don't want to do. So he's instantly harmed because of those pretty difficult to meet requirements to recruit, and also as a unit, he's really just meh. So I'll put him in meh, because you do need to keep him alive for the Omega ending, and he does give a bunch of bonus EXP to Proton thanks to the bonus conversations, but just the difficulty of recruiting him and just how mediocre he is. He's like one of the battle mages in the game, I'd say, and I don't think he has any physical damage of note, so just a very mediocre unit with extremely difficult requirements to unlock. Next we have Fightor. Fightor is a pretty good unit actually. He doesn't really excel at anything, but he has decent defense, and he also has 1 range healing. So if he had infinite range healing, he would be pretty high up there, but as a unit that you get no matter your route unless you're in Genocide, and he's just pretty good unit. He doesn't really excel in anything, but he does a bit of everything, including attacking, defending, and healing. So I'll put him in decent. There's not really any reason not to use him unless you want to like recruit Recalipo, but at the same time, Recalipo isn't even that good, so yeah. Next we have Xuir. Xuir is he's good. He's easily the best Proto-Xuir out of the 3 Proto-Xuirs that you recruit in Act 3. And he has Xuir Beam, which is long range damage, which is always appreciated, and he also has physical attacks with slash and stuff, which are really good. So yeah, I'm putting him in decent because of he would be in good, but he has low availability, and you do need to like recruit this guy, and to recruit him you need to recruit this guy, and both of them are pretty mediocre units. The only reason that they're there is to recruit him. Actually, since I'm placing him that high, I'll put him in good actually. He isn't gaming tier because he's not like gonna destroy the game, but he is really useful in Act 4, so I will put him here actually. Since, yeah, he is definitely the better option instead of recruiting Xuir if you want to go for optimal playthrough. Next we have Recalipo, the last replacement unit in the game, I think. So I think you need like 10 or less party members, which is pretty difficult to do, so that's definitely counting against them, especially since like you just got the 3 mercenaries and possibly the 4 Shadians. That's like 7 recruitments right there, and you need 10 or less. So pretty difficult requirements to meet, and as a unit he's just like slightly decent. Like he's not bad, but the recruitment cost is really high, so unless like you really want to use him, there's not really much point to it. But if you do have like a pretty low party for whatever reason, maybe you got hecked by the break boss fight and didn't realize you could just snipe him or archery him or whatever, you could always use him. So overall, if it weren't for his recruitment costs, he would probably be in decent or good, but since it does cost so much to recruit him, I'm putting him in meh. Next we have Tabmark. So again, Tabmark, if it weren't for his recruitment requirements, he'd be in gaming or good, but since you do need to keep this guy Wrestles alive, and he himself has a pretty steep recruitment cost, I'm gonna have to put him in decent. Again, he's a really good unit, but the recruitment cost is pretty annoying. It's not as bad as Recalibrate, since having like 8 units at the end of Act 1 is much more reasonable than having 10 units at the end of Act 3. But at the same time, you do need to keep this guy alive, who is a pretty bad unit, so overall, not the best recruitment, but is a really good unit if you do manage to get him. But I'm counting him down because of his recruitment costs. Now, time for the Act 4 characters. We have Act 4 weapons. So, Act 4 weapons, he has Snipe, instantly good, but you only get to use him in like the last like 4 or 5 chapters of the game, which is Act 4. But he also provides a bunch of EXP to Aerith because of their bonus conversations. So, really good, but he has really short availability since you do recruit him so late into the game. But he does have Snipe and a bunch of utility, so I will put him in good. Actually, you know what? I'm putting him in gaming, because even though his stats aren't as good as like Act 2 Aerith Act 2 weapons at that point, he does give the EXP to Aerith while also dealing snipe damage, so I'm gonna move him to gaming. And I think that provides like more benefits than like characters like B and Uranium do, since he does have multiple not supports, but bonus conversations with Aerith. So next we have HM, the mechanical guy that you recruit. So he's meh. You do need Fail to recruit him, but Fail is a good unit, so you'll probably have him alive in the first place, and as a unit he doesn't really do anything, he's kind of just there, so meh. Next we have Kion. Kion, he is only playable in the last chapter of the game, or last 2 depending on the route, but last chapter of the game, not very available, but he does do healing and stuff, and he can help out with damage, but again, absurdly short availability. I'm gonna have to put him in meh. Next we have Xuir form Proton. So he is just Proton, but stronger in every way. I think he gets like 20 or 50 free level ups when he goes into this form, and honestly, he's just like, as a unit, if you recruited him in any other chapter apart from like the final boss of the true ending, he would be gaming to you, but seeing how you can only use him in one chapter where you're basically supposed to use him, since he's like the only one who can reasonably fight a 2-draw quest. He's like the only choice you have, only in one chapter and only in one route of the game, and that availability, that's decent, I guess. You do have to use him, but you only get to use him in one chapter, and yeah. And the same basically goes for Integer, since you get him in the same chapter, but you don't even really need to use him, unlike Xuir, since Xuir needs to deal damage to Quest, but he doesn't deal damage, he just does healing, so you could technically use any other healer in the game. So I'm putting him down since you don't have to use them, but again, if you recruited him in any other chapter in the game, he would be pretty busted, since he does have like 999 move, which is the highest in the game by far. And now finally, with things done, we have Genocide Route Proton. Or actually that's not Proton, but that's Proton's vessel form for the one who consumes all. And honestly, this is just Proton, but with a different sprite and slightly higher stats. So, you kind of have to use him. He's the only character that you can use in that chapter, so I'll put him here. Same situation as Xuir form Proton. You have to use him in that chapter because the chapter was designed like that, and you get to only use them in one chapter. But if they were in any other chapter, like at like Act 1 or something, like they would definitely be in gaming. So yeah, looking back at this, I think this is a pretty decent tier list, and this will be it for this video. If you enjoyed, like, possibly subscribe, and remember, go to infinityJKA.itch.io to install Bipole and actually understand what this tier list is. So, gaming.